Welcome to In the Zone, alongside Aaron Chung and Nate Reichley. I'm your host, Brad Wood. As MLB playoffs continue to roll on and football gives us more and more to ponder, we got a lot to talk about. So let's get into it. In the Zone starts now. Starting out in the MLB, the playoffs have already brought us some highlight reel plays, as well as some disappointing ones. In the American League, both wildcard teams that moved on, the Twins and the Rangers, have both already competed with 1 and 2 seeds. After the Rangers did a good job exposing Baltimore's lack of playoff experience by sweeping them, the Twins have continued to hold their own against the reigning World Series champions, the Houston Astros. Nate, what is the biggest surprises in the American League so far, and what do you see about these playoff teams for the future?
I mean, I'm an Orioles fan, and I am just nothing but disappointed right now. To get swept after being the #1 seed is a whole other level of embarrassment, and this team had so much talent around it. You got Adley Rutschman, who's arguably one of the greatest catchers in the league right now, one of the most amazing prospects to come out of college. You have Gunnar Henderson, you have Cedric Mullins, you have this great core, but then you have the pitching that they had against the Rangers, where you consistently start walking people, and then you give up a grand slam in the middle of the game, and they just can't come back from that. They can't recover. You can't make up 8 runs in less than like 4 innings, and then they give up 3 more runs, and next thing you know, it's 11-8, and the game's over.
I mean, I feel like the bullpen just simply wasn't there for the O's. But Aaron, what do you think? What do you think went wrong for the O's?
Starting, I think you mentioned the bullpen. I would mention starting pitching a lot too. I think the fact that they really didn't address their needs at the trade deadline. They went for Jack Flaherty. He gave them one good start and just kind of flamed out from there. And then you're getting to a point where you have a must-win game and you put out Dean Kremer. I mean, he'd been a fine starter for them, but in a must-win game, I think you need something more, especially to go up against the Rangers. That's a team, the really good offense. You know, Seager, Garcia, Josh Young, I mean, Nate Lowe. That's a team that's going to go off at any point. They're just destined to score 10 runs at some point, and if you don't have the right pitching to put up with them, it's going to be a tough one. It
was just a little embarrassing to see the O's with that performance just lay an egg for them, for the Rangers. I expected a nice close matchup, a 4 or 5 game series, but like a sweep. Like, as a baseball fan in general, I expected more. But again, the O's lack of experience just, like, what do you think? Do you think the O's will be back next year?
They'll definitely be back next year. They have a young roster. No one on that team is like super old considering retirement. Everyone's going to be back. They're going to keep their core. They're going to get better, if anything, on the offseason. They're going to work on their bullpen. They will be back in this position next year. And I guarantee you they will not get swept again.
Let's hope so. But Aaron, what do you think? Do you think those could go far? I mean, they have one of the best farm systems in MLB and a great team to back.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to go far. I mean, you've already seen a lot of young guys take some big strides. You know, Rutschman stepped up again. Gunnar Henderson, great rookie year. Tyler Wells, he was a really underrated name going into the season. I had a lot of stock in him. And he had a rougher second half, but he looked very good. He looks like he can be a quality starter in the future. I think if they can make the moves to go alongside with this team, bolstering that pitching staff too, especially now that you know you're not going to have Felix Bautista next year. If you make the right moves in the offseason, I think this is a team that's going to be right back at the conversations for being top seed in the American League again, maybe going to the World Series this time out.
Well, we can only hope because there's a lot of O's hands around here. But on the other end of things, the National League also started off with 2 sweeps in the wildcard round, with the Phillies and Diamondbacks advancing in competitive fashion. The Diamondbacks have had control over the Dodgers, while the Phillies are tying the series with the Atlanta Braves. Despite starting very strong, Aaron, as the current Phillies man right now tonight, Does the Phillies' loss to the Braves concern you, and what do they need to do to come back in the series?
Oh, I've been waiting for this one, Brad. Look, the end of the day is you wanted them to at least split in Atlanta, and they did that. And they took the game against Spencer Strider, which is big for them because they've had a lot of issues. The only time they've gotten to Strider, he had hurt himself, and my personal opinion is last year the Braves rushed him back too soon. They were too desperate to get him out there. But wow, I mean, you can talk about the Harris catch all you want. 2 for 8 with runners in scoring position, 11 guys left on base. I mean, that's not going to cut it against a Braves team like this. You have to take advantage of any chance you get. You know, you get 1 or 2 more hits with runners in scoring position, you're probably winning that game 6-5 or something. And one thing I have seen a lot of Phillies fans talk about is a lot of them have started to turn on Jeff Hoffman for that. I find that very puzzling. He was one of their best relievers this year. I think it was just one bad pitch. He throws a slider instead. This Braves team has struggled against high-velocity fastballs. So I think, yeah, it's a weird decision to throw a fastball there. I'm not going to turn on Jeff Hoffman right now, though.
I would have turned on that Phillies lineup because it just felt like they weren't really clutch in these situations. This is Red October, and you know, I'm just puzzled. But Nate, what do you think about the Phils? Do you think they can still win the series against the Braves?
I think it's not only possible, it's probable at this point. You're going into Philadelphia with a chance to win the series and go to the National League Championship. That's pretty much all you need to say at that point. Philadelphia is a completely different atmosphere. We saw it last year. It blew up when they were in the National League Championship, when they were even in the divisional. There's no way to put it into words. You just have to be there. And I don't think the Braves are going to be able to tune out Philly fans and tune out the atmosphere, because that's a lot. That plays a very big key in performance. We saw it with the Orioles. We saw it with a lot of other games that happened this weekend. They got in the pitcher's head and they started just hitting bombs. If the Phillies can get that, that team is loaded. They're going to hit bombs for days.
I get what you mean, but the thing I'm more worried about, the Braves have just a all-star lineup throughout. The bottom of the lineup is close to 300 hitters. For the season, they finished around 500 slugging. I mean, again, this might be a shootout between. I expect tonight will be a good shootout. I mean, it's a very important game. You know, you're at Philly.
Yeah.
Very important. If the Phillies don't pull up, I just don't see them recovering. I don't see them making the comeback.
I think for both teams, they're kind of going through the same thing right now. They're both also teams, coincidentally, that don't hit well against the high heat, high fastballs. I think one thing that we're going to see is which team stars are going to come through first. But again, you mentioned the fact we're back in Philly. I don't want to rely on home field advantage too much, because I think that's something that I would be worried about. That you're going to over-rely on Philadelphia's fans being able to overpower Atlanta, if you will. But you got a pitching matchup here, Noel versus Elder. That's a big advantage for them. You're going to go into the next game. You're going to face Spencer Strider, sure, but again, with this team, I think the Phillies are going to find a way to get under Strider's skin, and that's why I think I'm going to boldly declare Phillies in 4, Phillies in 4, Phillies in 4.
We can only hope so, but right now, Middlesbrough Sports give us a lot to be excited about this week. For the latest in Marauder sports, we send it over to Nicole Dalton. Nicole?
Thanks, Brad. Marauder Athletics has had some tough losses this week, but stood strong. This past weekend in football, the Marauders fell to the East Stroudsburg Warriors 38-17. The Warriors pushed through the Marauders, scoring 21 points in their first 4 drives, and Millersville was unable to recover. Though, wide receiver Jalen Carter made a career-high 5 receptions, and the Marauders' defense entered this week leading in the PSAC. Millersville is now 3-3 for the season and 1-2 in the PSAC East. Women's volleyball shut out Bowie State this past week, winning 3-0 here in Pasillo. This win came through a strong defense. This continues a perfect 6-0 winning record against Bowie State since 2009. They also played Lock Haven and Bloomsburg and fell 1-3 at both universities respectively. They will next be playing a critical matchup against Shepherd University. Field hockey has raised their record to 8-4 for the season. This past week, they played East Stroudsburg, Mercyhurst, and Coker. They fell to East Stroudsburg in overtime 2-1, but defeated Mercyhurst and Coker winning 3-0 and 3-1. Best of luck to those competing as fall sports press on. Now we send it back to the desk for the latest in college football. Brad?
Thanks, Nicole. We're now joined by Josh Gearhart and Lucas Miller. As Nicole said, we'll be discussing how this weekend played out for college football. A popular topic on this show is the ongoing discussion of who the best team in college football is this year. Georgia has been ranked number 1 week in and week out, but has caused major skepticism among fans after many close games with unranked teams. This week, however, may have been a turning point for them after they beat Kentucky 51-13. Josh, does this cement Georgia as the top team in college football, or are you still questioning if they should be ranked number 1?
Honestly, Brett, that's a great question. But to answer your point, no. Kentucky seemed like they were ranked just so they could have a ranked team play against Georgia. But me and Lucas discussed this earlier. I mean, Lucas, we both agreed Kentucky was not, a top 25 team. So do I think Georgia beating Kentucky is, a significant deal? Looking at the rest of their schedule, probably. I mean, their schedule is, a lot softer than Sherman Ultra Soft. But, with that being said, Kentucky typically year in and year out has been a formidable opponent in the SEC. And look, it's the SEC, right? So if you beat anybody in the SEC, with the exception of Vanderbilt, it's a big deal. It's a big deal, right? So do I think Georgia should be removed from the number 1, ranking as of right now? No, because here's the thing. The teams underneath them really haven't shown much in the aspect of that, they should be the number 1 team as well. I mean, look at Michigan's schedule. We talked about this as well, Lucas. Michigan really hasn't played any significantly ranked teams. But, now, here's the big but. Michigan could be going up to that number 1 spot, right? If, and here's the big if, Michigan needs to be both Ohio State and Penn State, in my eyes, to be ranked number 1. If they accomplish that feat, then yes. And we're talking about a new top dog. Lucas, your thoughts?
I think I have pretty much the same point to make as you with Georgia. They beat a ranked team in Kentucky. I understand Kentucky maybe is not worthy of that ranking. There's some stuff to back that up with how they had beaten Florida had beaten Tennessee. You go on that trail,
It's
but
like the chain reaction.
it doesn't mean that much. So
No.
Georgia, I still think, I've said this for the past, I don't know how many episodes that I've said this in a row, you can't put anyone over Georgia until someone proves themselves. And we're in week 6 or 7 right now, and no one has proved themselves. But that also has to do with who teams are playing. Florida State has probably played the best schedule so far. They played LSU, they played a couple teams in their conference, but they also haven't played that well against teams in the ACC. Michigan has not played anybody yet. Their best opponent that they've played is Minnesota this past weekend. And other than that, you have behind there Ohio State. They didn't do that well against Maryland. They don't look very great.
Barely beat Notre Dame.
They barely beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame just lost to Louisville. So it's chaos right now. It's a very weird time because this is probably the first season. I've been watching college football my whole life. This is probably the first season where we're in October, in the middle of October, and there's not
no clear-cut
a
number
set
1.
of teams who are like, this is the playoffs, and we know that. Because every year it seems like we've had a set of maybe 8 teams max. We're like, this is number 1, this is number 2, and then they fight for the next couple spots.
Right.
We don't have that at all right now, and it's really bizarre. It is.
I mean, it's great competition seeing this in college football. It's always exciting to watch college football. But while Penn State had the weekend off, fans were still tuned in with what was happening in football, especially throughout the Big Ten. While Ohio State and Michigan dominated their much weaker opponents, the game to watch was Louisville versus Notre Dame. This upset loss for Notre Dame caused many Penn State fans to feel a good amount of joy. Despite their team not playing, the interesting thing about this game, however, is taking back to when Ohio State struggled against Notre Dame in Week 4 and almost lost. After this weekend, Lucas, do you think Notre Dame loss says more about Louisville or says more about Ohio State struggling? It should not be ranked as highly.
That's a pretty good point about Ohio State, but I think it says more about Louisville. I mean, they've built something incredible at Louisville this year. I think that's a big part. Jeff Brom is their coach, correct?
Yeah,
Him coming back to Louisville, he's completely turned that place around, and it's a very fun thing to watch this season because they look really good, and they haven't looked good like they do right now since Lamar Jackson was there.
Just about to say
and the Notre Dame's loss to Louisville, it doesn't say a whole lot about Notre Dame, I think. I think it says more of how far this Louisville program has come. I don't know that they're going to, go unbeaten, make playoff, do anything spectacular like that, but 6 wins already, right? They're at 6-0,
we could be talking about a New Year's 6 appearance.
Yeah,
for
they
Louisville.
could be a New Year's 6 team. And the Ohio State loss, the Ohio State win against Notre Dame, it still is a good win for them because it's early in the season when Notre Dame, they hadn't lost to Louisville yet. They looked good still, so it's still a good win for Ohio State. But Louisville beating Notre Dame is huge.
Yeah, let me kind of build on that, Lucas. So I think, to answer your point, I think it's huge for Louisville. I mean, right, like Jack Harlow was in the building. So the minute I knew
Donovan
was,
Mitchell
was in the building,
yeah.
Donovan
Yeah.
Mitchell, Jack Harlow, they weren't going to lose that game.
The crowd, it was a blackout.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
it
pretty
was a
sure,
blackout. I mean, the atmosphere in Louisville that night,
Electric.
it was electric, right? So to answer your point, though, look at the amount of points Louisville put up on Notre Dame as compared to Ohio State, right? We watched Ohio State barely beat Maryland, and we're talking the game of inches,
Yeah.
fellas.
Yeah.
We're talking about to the point where his knee was almost down, right? So that was honestly a big win for the program that night. But looking back at it, Louisville dismantled Notre Dame, dismantled them
Yeah.
in every capacity, rushing yards, passing yards, on the defensive side of the ball. They handed them a clear-cut L. Ohio State,
Did not.
escaped by the skin of their teeth. They just got out of there. So when you think about that, right, I think that says a lot about the team that Ohio State is this year, right? Because you think about the teams that we've seen from Ohio State before, right? The J.T. Barretts, the Justin Fields, all those guys. Dude, this is probably honestly one of the worst Ohio State defenses
100%.
I've seen in years. So with that being said, Penn State and Ohio State, that'll be a game that decides so many things because it won't only, in my eyes, probably decide the Big Ten, but it could decide if the Big Ten sends a team from the college football playoff. But also to answer your question, I think Louisville, I don't know who they have in the rest of their schedule, but after a win of that magnitude, they could go on and we could easily see them in a New Year's 6. So
Right. Well, one more thing. Notre Dame, they could be in a lot of trouble right now because this weekend it's away at USC, right? I think they go to Southern
away
Cal.
at USC.
Yeah. That's
going to be 3 losses.
yeah. It could very well be.
They might actually fall out of the rankings.
Right.
And if you ask me, right, let me ask you guys this question, right? This is Marcus Freeman's, second year as head coach at Notre Dame, second or third year?
Third, yeah. Third.
What has he done at the helm of Notre Dame?
I personally can't think of anything at all.
He answered the question, ladies and gentlemen. Can't think of anything.
Exactly, but now.
But do you think Marcus Freeman should be on a hot seat?
Perhaps. I think that's something we'll talk about next week.
Yeah, I think that's something we'll definitely talk about next week.
We'll see. There's so much to decide in college football still. It's rankings are still not set. But now we're transitioning over to the NFL. Week 5 had its highs, but also had its pretty low lows. Right here in Pennsylvania, one of the augular games of the season was played, and it didn't seem like the better team won. During the Ravens-Steelers game, the Ravens seemed like the favorites to win, but despite good quarterback play, couldn't get that win. The Steelers ended up coming back to win the game 17-10, and we're all wondering how on earth that happened with Matt Canada as the offensive coordinator. Josh, what do you make of this game? Are the Steelers legit, or the correct answer is the Steelers are frauds and got lucky by the skin of the teeth?
Matt Canada needs to buy me, headache relief medicine. That's what I need right now. It was funny because I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but the game-winning touchdown that Kenny Pickett threw to George Pickens, first of all, shout out my man GP. That man is a dog. He can flat out play. But that was not the design play. So the Skybox cam was released a couple of days later, and you see everybody else going crazy in the Skybox because they just beat the Ravens on a final play. But there's Matt Canada just sitting there with the headset on like this. Just sitting there like this, right? So he did not call that play. He did not call that play. So he's probably sitting there thinking, you know what? Thank you, Kenny. Thank you, Kenny, for giving me another weekend here in Pittsburgh. I will pay you and give you a nice steak dinner after that. But he needs to go. He needs to go. I'm tired of him. The entire state, not just the entire city of Pittsburgh, the entire state is tired of him. I was watching the Penguins hockey game the other night.
Yep.
Hockey game. There was a meme that was made. It's like POV. You're Matt Canada. You turn on the TV, trying to watch a game that might not involve you getting yelled at. The Penguins fans, the entire stadium sold out on opening night. We're chanting, "Fire Canada." You know what? If I was there, I probably would have started the chant. But he's got to go. I mean, like, the Steelers' lack of offensive production is terrifying. I mean, I'm not sure the exact statistic, but I'm pretty sure they haven't had a 400-yard offensive game since, 2019? We were still wearing masks back then, fellas.
Not to mention, I believe if the Steelers score like 25 or more, or the opposing team scores 25 on them, they're like the record's like abysmal. I think they only got 1 or 2 wins out of like 20 something.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but Lucas, what do you think about the Steelers? I mean, they're getting carried by TJ Watt single-handedly. All right, franchise tag plus. All right, I think the entire city of Pittsburgh owes a lot of gratitude to him. But
Yeah, I think I don't have much to say about the Steelers because I'm not a big Steelers guy. But I mean, that's a big win for them considering it's over the Ravens, who's their division rival.
Didn't think we were going to win.
I don't think that. I think the Ravens are in more trouble right now due to the fact that like they have Lamar, they have
The
former
Ravens-
MVP, they have this explosive.
The Ravens are in trouble considering they brought in one of the most talented names in the offseason, Odell Beckham Jr., and he got picked off by a rookie. Bro got picked off by rookie Joey Porter Jr. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, you hear it here first, ladies and gentlemen. That guy, I'm not just saying this, I mean, granted, it's probably a little bit biased since I'm a Penn State fan, but you know what? I mean, Lucas, we've watched him play at Penn State. He's the real deal. Like, he really is the real deal. Honestly, his dad's a great man, but he might be better than his dad.
I mean, we'll see. He's only a rookie, so he has ceilings high for him. And I think under like Steelers defense, not the offense, I think he could be really molded to a great player in the future.
Also, before we transition to the quick topic, if TJ Watt, if you're watching this, happy birthday, man. Enjoy your special day, my guy.
I'm sure he's watching.
I'm sure he is watching, yeah.
Yeah. Let's hope so, fingers crossed. What might have been the most anticipated game of the week in the NFL certainly did not disappoint. The Dallas Cowboys traveled to San Francisco to take on this year's juggernaut, the 49ers. While many believe this will be a shootout between the two teams, the 49ers dominated this game from start to finish, defeating Dallas 42-10. Many Cowboys players publicly say they did not believe the score actively displayed the divide between talent between the two teams, but the 49ers players do not agree with that. So, Lucas, who is correct? Was this game a fluke, or it just shows that the 49ers are that good and are the team to watch in the NFC West?
Well, first I saw this on the script today and I had a big smile on my face because that was great to watch. I mean, the Cowboys, there was so much hype going into that game. Talking the week before about, we're going into San Francisco, two best teams, blah, blah, blah. That was not the two best teams. I mean, that was a total beatdown, and that's exactly what Dallas needed right now. They're not going anywhere right now. They're really not, because Dak Prescott, he threw 3 or 4 interceptions. Was it 3?
He had a hat trick,
and
for all the wrong reasons.
They were not like it was great defensive plays. One of them might have been because it was a pass breakup, but the other ones, it was an overthrow and an ill-advised pass. He looks terrible right now. But then again, the 49ers are easily the best team in the league right now, without a doubt. The Buffalo's slightly under them, but it's not really slightly. It's a big gap. The 49ers went out there playing against a team like Dallas, who had a big chip on their shoulder. They thought they were right there in line with San Francisco, and San Francisco basically said to Dallas, "You're not anywhere close to us." They beat them down on every single aspect of the game, and they showed exactly why they are going to, be the best team in the league right now. And I think Dallas, a lot of Dallas fans, just Dallas in general, they think they're going to meet up with them again, and I'm not sure that that's going to happen. I don't really see it, because if Dak keeps playing the way that he does, Dak's not going to be on the Dallas Cowboys for much longer.
No.
And the
No.
Dallas Cowboys are not going to be going to the playoffs if Dak keeps playing how he does.
Nope. Look, so we saw that the Cowboys went out and acquired Trey Lance, right? So there might be a point in time we do see the Trey Lance era get back and going. But, in the words of George Kittle's shirt, that was personal.
That was one of the, I don't want to interrupt you, but that
No,
was
go
one
ahead.
of the most awesome performances
savage.
I've seen in athletics, just in sports ever, maybe ever, because he had 3 catches for 3 touchdowns while wearing that shirt. That was fantastic.
Yeah, then
I
he
loved that.
revealed it at the very
Yeah,
end, which
it
was
great.
so savage. But, and he also helped me win my fantasy league that night. But
Me too.
no, I think honestly, and I saw this morning that there was a bar in Dallas right outside A&T Stadium that literally took a Dak Prescott jersey, attached to the bottom of the mop, started mopping the floor with his jersey. So 3 interceptions, 3 turnovers period is like danger zone, right? 2 is rough. 2 is rough, especially for an NFL team, right? An NFL team, the Cowboys caliber, that has a pretty amazing defense. They've lost some key players, Trayvon Diggs, but they have arguably a defensive player in the year candidate in Micah Parsons, who was silenced. Silenced by the 49ers. And honestly, and they just went out and required, who was it?
Randy
Gregory.
Gregory.
So it's like, if they don't have enough talent, they just went out and got more.
Right.
So I don't know. I think it's going to be a very interesting year, and we still have not seen who can knock off the 49ers.
I don't see any team coming back. And I'm going to say this right now. It's not the Dallas Cowboys here. They have a lot of high-end talent, but do they have a team? A good team that can push?
No.
Not a shot.
Believe it or not, before we go on here, I think the only team, and I've seen them take them down before because of their defense, the only thing that could potentially compete with the 49ers is the Philadelphia Eagles. That's the only team I would give a shot to.
Yeah, but if I'm being honest, there's been some wins by the Eagles that they just got by.
No, and I
skin of
agree
their
with
teeth.
you.
So that's why I'm a little skeptical about the Birds.
I'll tell you, it won't be the Steelers. We saw what happened
It
when
won't be the
we
Steelers.
saw what happened when they played the 49ers. Let's not talk about that one. That was rough.
We'll talk more about the Birds next week. But that would do for this episode of In the Zone. For Lucas Miller, Josh Gearhart, Nicole, Dalton, and the entire In the Zone crew, I'm Bradwood. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week right here on In the Zone.